Did I do that? Sorry, guys. Welcome today to a little talk by EOS. My name is Laura Gilmore. I work exclusively with our medical device customers at EOS in North America. So today we're going to talk a little bit about the ways to think about how to come to the medical market with an additive manufactured product. And it's a more of a high level discussion. So I'm going to talk about who EOS is to introduce you guys in case you haven't heard before, and then talk about where additive manufacturing or where medical device fits in the world of additive manufacturing in that hype curve that I'm sure you're all aware of. And then talk about the challenges, and really the meat of the conversation is what to do in the medical regulated space. So some of you may know Additive, or EOS, is a technology-driven company. We were founded in 1989 by Dr. Hans Langer, and we work in a variety of industries. One of those focuses is medical device. And you can see it's a pretty rapidly growing company. We have a global presence, and over 2,200 systems are installed worldwide, and I tend to not update this slide because it updates rather frequently. So 2,200 plus systems, and of those there are metal and polymer solutions. Within the metal systems that are out in the marketplace, about 20% of those are considered to be used for medical devices, and for the polymer, about 10% of those are considered to be used for medical devices. You can see we have a global presence with offices in 11 countries. In the US, we're based right outside of Austin, Texas, and Detroit, Michigan. And also to note is we have a team of 10 dedicated medical experts within our global team. So is additive manufacturing going to be the technology that changes the medical world? So you're here at Rapid. You've seen all of the articles that have come out in the last several years, the first of facial reconstruction using 3D printing, Dr. Hollister and his tracheal splints. I'm sure you've all heard of these stories. And maybe you've also heard of the technology hype curve by Gartner. And what this looks at is the way technology is adopted within a business. So it starts with some sort of innovation trigger, as with this article from The Economist. And you have several success stories that come. So you have this huge peak of inflated expectations with headlines such as the third industrial revolution and maybe printing a jet engine straight away. And then you have a decline because maybe this hasn't happened in the amount of time that people are expecting, or there have been failures or things. So it goes into a trial of disillusionment. And then folks that have started, early adopters, have gone through the process and understand more how the technology fits within their business. And so you have beginnings on the slope of enlightenment towards production, where, like this example of the jet engine loading bracket. And so for Gartner, the idea of consumer 3D printing, having a printer in your house like a microwave, is probably still on that peak of inflated expectations. But the good news is enterprise 3D printing, industrial 3D printing is here, as we can see by how much Rapid has grown over the last several years. So what does this look like in the medical space? Where are we in that comparative curve? And hearing aids are actually quite far on the plateau of productivity. They're about 98% of hearing aids are created using additive manufacturing. If you can imagine, this is a patient-specific device that goes into the ear canal, so it makes sense for this technology. Dental devices is also well on its way, as well as some of the hip replacements. So you've seen lattice structure on hip. I'm sure you've all seen that. So that's also well on its way. But there's a good gap of people that are still in the peak of inflated expectations. And the idea is today to give you an understanding of some key areas where you can look to reduce time to market. So there are 4 common hurdles that I still see every day talking to customers in the medical space. And the first is really understanding and deciding what device you want to make in the first place. So a lot of folks, to reduce the burden of risk, want to use something that they already have in the marketplace or have experience with. So they want to use a device that's already out there. But it's not often easy to take a traditionally manufactured device and make it an additively manufactured device. Also, folks need to be open to design changes. So thinking about looking at your product portfolio, you may need to change your design slightly. And then looking at the entire process from start of design all the way through to post-processing is helpful, as well as what do we do about our regulatory and quality control. So these are the things that we'll talk about in a little more detail. But first, thinking about, we're in a regulated industry. We're talking with the FDA, and this is some data that was actually presented at Rapid in 2014. And most recently, 2015, the amount of devices that have been cleared with the FDA is over 85. So you can see that folks are successful. There is a pathway to move through the FDA with medical devices currently. But you can also see that a lot of this is in orthopedics. And so there's a whole realm of devices that haven't really been tapped into yet. And then if we look at, if any of you are familiar with working with the FDA, you will know that they don't really comment a whole lot publicly on what is going on within the agency. And starting in October 2014, which may have been triggered by that increase in number of devices they were seeing that were additively manufactured, they came out with a working group, a public workshop, where they got information and direction from industry. And then taking that information, they created a draft guidance document that was released in May of 2016. I'm sure you all have, if you're in the medical device industry and work with this technology, you have likely read and reviewed this document. The comments for that close in August. But we have some information, Matthew DePrima and James Colburn, who are at the show today, they have done kind of a speaking circuit of about the guidance document. And there are 2 main points that I want to leave you with that are need to be thought of and considered when adopting this into your business for medical devices. And the first thing is, in medical devices, we're talking about a worst case. If you've worked in medical device, you know you're testing to a worst case situation. So the guidance document is really to help you think through and understand if there's anything about additive manufacturing that will give you a new worst case. The other piece is that this document is extremely broad. It covers all of the technologies that are out on the floor today, right? You could come in with the FDA with any of the technologies that are here. So you can imagine, if you know anything about the technologies here, there are different pros and cons to each one. There's different ways of looking at making a device with each one. So the document is extremely broad. So therefore, not everything from that document may apply to your situation. You don't need to go through a checklist and say, I checked off this and this and this. It needs to be appropriate to what technology that you are using. And why does the FDA have this documentation and guidance document and communication? The additive manufacturing process is pretty complicated, as I'm sure you're all well aware. All of the pieces need to fit together to create proper part accuracy, surface quality, and material properties. Remember, we're building our material properties layer by layer in the system. So having all of this under control is extremely important. So I've taken that and made sort of a dumbed down version of that graphic. And so we have the machine, obviously. That's all very exciting. That's why we're here at Rapid, to learn more about all of the exciting new developments with the machine. But that's not the only piece that we need to be considering. The design is really important, what we're putting into the machine. Post-processing is another piece that needs to be considered. And then materials and machine control. And all of this needs to be considered within a quality system. So folks that have not been working with medical devices in the past, this may be new to you. So if we start with the design and thinking about how to design for additive manufacturing and what makes sense, there are 4 key technology differentiators. And being at Rapid, I'm sure you all know what they are. First, being freedom of design. So having that lattice structure, porous structure on a hip cup, for example. The cost advantage, so integrating your functionality, being able to redesign, again, having that option to redesign your part and integrate maybe from 27 parts to 5 or 7. And then customization, obviously with personalized medicine and precision medicine being big buzzwords in the government agencies, this is an area where additive manufacturing can fit into that paradigm. And then finally, productivity advantage. So for example, we've come from a prototyping space, and if you have a lot of orthopedic companies work directly with design surgeons, and they'll come in for a meeting for a couple days. So maybe you have a design meeting and you're starting with day 1 and you have a procedure and instrumentation that you're looking at. So you get your feedback from your surgeons, and then you can go and change your CAD model and maybe build the part overnight, have it for your surgeon the next day, see if that feedback that they've given, if you've captured what they're looking for. So that's another example of productivity advantage. So these 4 situations are all places where, if additive manufacturing is new to you, where you can, by creating these situations, you are easily can go faster to market because you're able to redesign, you're able to look at a productivity advantage, or you're doing something customizable. So the other piece is the entire solution chain really needs to be thought about at the beginning of the process. And I actually like to look at it backwards. So I like to look at what my product needs to be, what my user needs, say I need to have at the end of the day, and then look at where my machining needs to happen and how to orient my part to better accomplish that goal. And then the design, where my support structures are going to be compared to what areas I want to machine. Figuring all of that out together on the front end makes this process go much, much faster. Oops. So we've talked about many of these aspects. The last big one is quality control. And if you've ever talked to someone at EOS, I'm sure you're familiar with the EOS Magic Triangle. And the idea is that we're balancing the material, the system, and the process to create a high quality part. So maybe you have a design where you've had to take the EOS standard parameters and tweak them for either maybe a porous structure or material properties, or whatever your case, surface finish maybe. So now you have done all your feasibility work, and you're ready to move forward with the manufacturing process. So this needs, the quality control system here needs to be considered. There are 2 aspects of it that are really brought by EOS. The factory acceptance test, which is where the machine undergoes material testing, and to make sure that it's behaving the way that's intended to behave. And then it's shipped to your facility, and installation qualification is performed. And for my medical customers, I always make sure that if they're going to be using the machinery in production, that they have this installation qualification completed, because it's going to be important for your auditing, for example. And then after that, in general, you're on your own to figure out how to meet the quality system needs from the regulatory bodies. So EOS recognized that this has been a problem in the past, and it takes folks a long time to get from this point to a product on the market. So the idea is that we now offer a service to help you get there. So teach you all the tools and put this into your quality management system. And the idea is you have quality control from your traditional, what you're used to, from your predicate device, is not necessarily going to be the same thing as it is with your additively manufactured device. So maybe you have a material specification for titanium, but maybe you don't have a material specification for titanium powder, right? So it's a different aspect that you need to deal with. So all of the areas of quality system and your design control, DFEMA, production specification, PFEMA, all of that may be different. So instead of leveraging what you've always done before, the idea is that EOS will then teach you all the aspects of the machine and help you understand how to apply that to the quality system you already have. So there's going to be different areas depending on where we are in the process triangle. And I can't really go into all of these today, but this is the basic idea of making sure that we're balancing all of the areas of that triangle to create your high quality parts. And with this, having an understanding and being able to walk through the quality journey together with EOS, the time to market does come down. The idea being that you would reduce your learning curve. So the 4 things I want to leave you with today is that devices are being manufactured using additive manufacturing and on the market currently. There are 4 ways that additive manufacturing is most useful. If you're going to make a custom device, if you can redesign and use the freedom of design, and cost and productivity. And then there really needs to be a focus on the entire solution chain. Every single piece that we talked about really did have something from design all the way through to post-processing, and that entire solution chain needs to be considered. And then finally, successfully implementing additive manufacturing is teamwork, especially in the medical space. So we're happy to help. Please feel free to contact me. I have my contact information here, and thank you. I'm open to answer any questions.
If anyone has questions for Laura, I can walk around and pass the mic. She'd be happy to answer some questions. Anyone?
Hello.
Hello.
In terms of material-wise, usage of materials, right? There are only limited materials. For example, if you are using EOS machine, yeah, you have your own powders, right? Mm-hmm. And how flexible it is to use other powder materials or anything like that? Yeah.
So we have customers that have developed their own materials, but generally in the medical space, there are certain materials that have a long clinical history, like titanium, cobalt, chrome, etc. So those are the materials that most medical device manufacturers stick to.
Do you have any example of non-customized 3D printed medical devices that are on the market right now? I know you mentioned there are hearing aids and hip replacements and things like that that are very customized, but are you selling anything to general doctors or hospitals that they can give to any patient?
Yeah, so our customers do. So if you think it used to be Big Five, and now they've been bought out by, some of them have merged together, but the Zimmer Biomet, Smith & Nephew, Wright Medical, these types of companies, I can't give you specifics because we have NDAs with these people, but those types of companies do have devices on the market today that aren't customized, that are off the shelf, available to surgeons. Anything else? All right. Well, Thank you all very much for your attention. Thank you.